because we are in downtown Milwaukee, and how Wisconsin counts the ballots, especially in these bigger cities like Milwaukee, is when you look at the early vote and when you look at the mail-in vote, they essentially all go to one location and they're counted, and then those results are posted all at once. And we just heard from the clerk that they are still working through these ballots, but we're likely not going to see the results from Milwaukee until the overnight hours. And you can see a little bit of the process. Just look at how wide open this entire room is. And we just got an update saying that clerks are working through some of the larger wards right now. So far, they processed about 80,000 ballots today. You see some of that processing going on right now as we speak. Once those ballots are processed, then they go into the tabulators, and then that's when they are finally tabulated and sent over to the county. Now, this is all important because there are about 107,000 ballots in this room alone for the state of Wisconsin. And when you talk to Republicans in this state, they are getting more and more optimistic. I'll tell you, they are very chatty right now, reaching out to us saying that, one, they don't think that Vice President Kamala Harris got enough vote out of Dane County. That's in Madison, big college area. But two, we know that Milwaukee is usually the last to post its results. And when you look at the margin right now in Wisconsin, with Donald Trump currently ahead with about 100,000 votes, if I'm telling you there's only about 107,000 ballots here that will be posted later tonight, Republicans are pointing to that and saying that they are very skeptical that the vice president will be able to make up that total. So the votes are still being counted. There are other places where votes are outstanding right now, but it's because of what you're seeing here, the fact that we're waiting on a lot of these ballots to come, that Republicans in the state are saying they're very optimistic, guys.
Shaq Brewster for us in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We'll be coming back to you, Shaq. And Parks has some follow-up questions, but I have to interrupt my own train of thought to bring you a call. For the second time this evening, NBC News is able to make a projection in a battleground state. NBC News now projects that in the battleground state of Georgia in the presidential race, Donald Trump has prevailed in the presidential race in Georgia. So again, of our swing states, we've got two called thus far in Georgia and in North Carolina per NBC News. That puts the electoral map at Donald Trump with 246 electoral votes, and Kamala Harris at 189 electoral votes. Again, both candidates aiming at 270. Of the seven of the seven states that we consider to be battleground states, two, North Carolina and Georgia, have been called by NBC News as of this hour. Both of them called for Donald Trump. Steve, over to you.
Yeah, and Rachel, what we can say now with that Georgia call is if Kamala Harris doesn't win a state that's not been treated as a battleground state, if she doesn't do that, then she now absolutely must pull out a win in Pennsylvania, because if there's no surprises outside the battleground, then Georgia plus North Carolina plus Pennsylvania would get Donald Trump to 270 electoral votes and the presidency. And look at Pennsylvania. We are closing in on 90% of the vote here. Donald Trump is leading by 168,000 votes right now. A couple of things that we can show you that have come in now in Pennsylvania to add a little more clarity. We said at the start of the night, two counties are pure bellwethers in Pennsylvania. Voted for Trump in 16, flipped to Biden in 20. What would they do tonight? We told you that Northampton County in the east has flipped to Donald Trump. The other one, Erie County, we've now got the results from Erie County. It's flipped back to Donald Trump. Again, just take a look at this. In 2016, when Trump won Pennsylvania, he won Erie County. He gave it back to Biden when Biden won the state. Now Trump is reclaiming Erie County tonight. Again, this is one of those big sort of quintessentially, call it Rust Belt counties, a lot of big blue collar population there. Where are we waiting for remaining vote in Pennsylvania right now then? We've talked a lot about Philadelphia. Jacob has told us there are going to be a big batch of mail-in votes that we are not going to know until sometime tomorrow morning. That's it. There's also some same-day vote that's been coming in. The same-day vote has been running less Democratic than the vote by mail. And again, the big picture in Philadelphia is the Democrats are currently 3 points behind where Joe Biden ran in 2020. And this this reflected a bit of a disappointment for Democrats. They won Pennsylvania, obviously, in 20. They were thrilled with that. But their Philadelphia number came down. It's coming down further so far. And unless those remaining mail-in ballots really boost them dramatically, Trump may finish with more than 20% in Philadelphia. Also still to come, we've got a few votes left in Delaware County, big suburban county, right outside Philadelphia. But again, right now, Harris is not hitting that Biden number. She absolutely needs to hit and exceed that in these places. Chester County, I think we're pretty much down to the vote by mail in Chester County. Of course, that is the very Democratic vote. So the question becomes, when we get that vote by mail, Harris is at 54.5. She's got to get past, she's really got to move past that Biden number. Will the remaining vote by mail in Chester County do that for her? Up to Montgomery County, more than 3/4 of the vote in here. This is a giant county, though. There are still lots of votes left to come. Again, from Harris's standpoint, she's got to get past that Biden number with what's left to come here. No vote by mail left in Montgomery County. Move up to Bucks County. 2/3 is in right here. This would be, if Donald Trump hangs on here, still plenty of votes to come, though, this would be a flip. And again, of those immediate Philadelphia area counties, this one a little bit more blue collar than the ones I just showed you. So again, that's a trend we're seeing. We saw it in Erie. We saw it in Northampton. We're seeing that in a lot of places tonight. Also, I'm giving you Democratic, big sort of Democratic vote areas, Bucks notwithstanding, but Chester, Montgomery, and Delaware. In southwest Pennsylvania, the two big counties here, we've got Washington all in. I want to draw your attention to this because these are two big bedroom community suburbs of Pittsburgh. In Washington County, Donald Trump has improved tonight. The core Republican area, he wanted to boost his numbers in a place like this. You can see in Washington, he has. And if you go next door to Westmoreland County, which is even bigger, there is still vote to come in Westmoreland County. Trump currently, take a look at this, 28 points was his margin, 36 here right now. Again, if he finishes above that 28, it's exactly what he wanted to be doing. So for Democrats, it's going to take something really kind of massive out of Philadelphia, where really those numbers are disappointing for them so far. And again, out of Chester with that vote by mail, it's more to come in Montgomery, and they're going to need to get bigger margins with what's to come. Again, 170,000 votes. That's Trump's advantage here, nearing 90% in Pennsylvania. Just checking on Allegheny. And again, those are the stakes. Trump wins this state. He's probably got this.
Steve Kornacki, thank you very much. We've got a call to make. NBC News can project at this hour, and this is a big one, that the Republican Party will control the United States Senate. Now, what tipped this over is that NBC News is also projecting a couple of Senate races since we last checked in on Senate. Right now in Nebraska, incumbent Republican Deb Fischer is projected to have held off a very stiff challenge from, interestingly, an independent challenger, Dan Osborne, not a Democrat, but an independent, ran a very close-fought race against incumbent Republican Senator Deb Fischer. But NBC News now projects that Deb Fischer will be returning to the Senate. Shows you a little bit about how things proceeded in this Nebraska Senate race. I should also tell you that earlier than this, in the Utah Senate race, NBC News has also projected a winner in the Utah Senate race. This is the seat that is being left by Mitt Romney, by Utah Senator Mitt Romney. It will be held by the Republicans, by Republican candidate John Curtis. So after John Curtis secured that seat and Deb Fischer secured hers, that puts the Republican control of the Senate on the books, according to NBC News projections. Lawrence, let me just get your reaction to that.
And this is huge because in the event of a Harris presidency, she probably would not be able to get any federal judges confirmed. I mean, any, like not any district court, not any appeals court, not any Supreme Court for an entire 4 years. On the other hand, in a Trump presidency, this means that all of those judges can just sail right through. It could mean that Donald Trump manages to broker the retirement of two Republican Supreme Court justices and replaces them with much younger justices. So the issue now becomes, what about the House of Representatives? What are we going to end up with in the House? If the House, if the Democrats can get control of the House, then they really have control of government. They do not have control of the confirmation process. That's gone. That is already gone. But in terms of what could happen legislatively, the House would be in control of that, meaning they could prevent any of the worst things.
And
let me just interject for a moment. We have eyes on Howard University right now. We can tell you that Vice President Harris is not expected to speak tonight, but we are seeing quite a crowd there, and we are expecting, we're within the 2-minute warning from a statement that we're expecting from the Harris campaign co-chair Cedric Richmond. Cedric Richmond expected to address this crowd at Howard momentarily. Again, we don't expect to be hearing from Vice President Harris. But I think, actually, if we can go to this live so we can hear the Natsat here, so we can hear Cedric Richmond and what he's going to say to the crowd and also how the crowd receives him. This is live from Howard University in Washington, D.C.
Good evening, Howard. Good evening, HU. I want to say good evening to all of the Harris campaign, the campaign family. Thank you for all that you have done. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing in the promise of America. We still have votes to count. We still have states that have not been called yet. We will continue overnight to fight to make sure that every vote is counted, that every voice has spoken. So you won't hear from the Vice President tonight, but you will hear from her tomorrow. She will be back here tomorrow to address not only the HU family, not only to address her supporters, but to address the nation. So thank you. We believe in you. May God bless you. May God keep you. And go HU and go Harris. Thank you all.
A short and to-the-point statement from Cedric Richmond, the Harris campaign co-chair, speaking to what is still a considerable crowd at Howard University in Washington, D.C. You now see them turn as one to start to leave the grounds. They're letting the crowd assembled there for the Harris campaign and in support of Vice President Harris, letting everybody know that she's not going to be speaking on any subject over the course of this evening. Cedric Richmond saying we still have votes to count. We still have states that have not been called yet. You will not hear from her tonight, but he did say that you will hear from her tomorrow, I think indicating that she may be speaking from Howard tomorrow, both addressing HU, Howard University, but also addressing the nation, in his words.
I just wanted to sort of re-emphasize a point that Lawrence made before that speech about where we stand tonight. We're looking at a map that appears to show somewhere in a national 3 or 4 point swing from 2020 towards the Republican Party. We have called the Senate for the Republican Party. That they were always favored to take the Senate, given the map, so it's not hugely surprising. There is a weird wrinkle here, which is the House of Representatives. Now, in 2016, of course, when Donald Trump won that race, despite losing the national popular vote, he won the White House, the Senate, and a House majority. He had a trifecta. When Joe Biden won in 2020, he had the Senate and the House a trifecta, thanks to those 2 Georgia runoffs. It is a genuine possibility that should Donald Trump win the presidency, which is not yet called, the Senate is called for Republicans, the Democrats take back the House from Republicans. This is not like crazy talk. This is not like some, it's 1 a.m. and I'm punchy. Like mathematically, based on what we know so far, based on the flips we have, that is genuinely an outstanding possibility. That could be massively consequential in ways that I cannot overemphasize.
And we're going to have to, as we start to see House races get called and as we watch for additional flips and ads, we're going to have to talk about those consequences over the course of this night. You're not going to get away with it, with leaving without talking about those consequences. But before we leave Howard University, I want to go actually to MSNBC's Michelle Norris, who's at Howard University for us, who just saw those remarks from Cedric Richmond. We saw the reaction from the crowd from that aerial or that high-mounted shot in terms of people turning and leaving. Cedric Richmond, Michelle, making clear that the vice president will not be speaking tonight. Nobody should be waiting to hear anything from her. But it does sound like, was I right in understanding what Cedric Richmond was saying, that she will be back at Howard tomorrow to make remarks both to Howard and to the nation?
Yes, you heard that right. The crowd, you can probably see behind me the rush to the exits. I mean, as soon as he said that, people turned on their heels and they were out of here. The evening was getting increasingly somber as people realized what this map is looking like. He did indicate that she would be back tomorrow to speak to people here and to speak to the nation. That, of course, is a logistical nightmare on several levels because the university was not expecting her to come back tomorrow. I don't know how large the crowd will be. There are a lot of unknowns in that statement. I do know that there was a lot of hand-wringing and consternation in her camp about when she should leave, about when she should start to head here. And her victory party, which was in another part of town, at what point they turned off the TV set and just piped up the music because the room was starting to get increasingly somber. So a lot of people here, I haven't had a chance to talk to people who expressed disappointment. There really is still a lot of people who are holding on to hope, trying hard to hold on to hope. But the numbers, it's hard to do that in the face of a map that really looks like it's presenting a very steep challenge, and a country that at this point is still very divided.
And to be clear, Michelle, NBC News has called 2 of the 7 swing states. They have called Georgia and North Carolina for Donald Trump. They've also called Senate control for the Republican Party. 5 swing states remain to be called. But as you say, the internal math, which we have been following with Steve Kornacki, the wins in Georgia and North Carolina have created the mood that you're describing. The last thing that we have reportable from the Harris campaign, the top of the Harris campaign manager, Jen O'Malley Dillon, said, we always knew it was going to be down to the blue wall, and the blue wall is still uncalled at this point. But it sounds like the Harris campaign is sort of keeping things tight in terms of whether or not they're going to string people along into thinking this is going to happen.
And in that note that Jen O'Malley Dillon sent out earlier, there was an indication there, if you noted, that came out, a little more than an hour ago. And she was telling people at that point, get some sleep. We'll continue to count these votes, and we'll be back at this in the morning.
Yes, that's right. Michelle Norris, I imagine, are not freeing you to go sleep anytime soon. I imagine we may be back with you yet. But thank you for being there for us. It's much appreciated.